Baron Kael'Roth was one of the richest and most powerful alien lords on the distant colony of Virion. His people ruled over many human workers who had come from Earth to help build new settlements. The Baron was tall, proud, and full of pride in his race's strength and beauty. To him, humans were nothing more than fragile beings who worked hard but dreamed small. He often found amusement in mocking them whenever he had the chance. One evening, a grand gathering was held in the Baron's palace. Leaders from both species, aliens and humans, were invited to discuss peace and cooperation. The room glittered with silver lights and crystal walls, but behind all that beauty, there was tension. Many aliens whispered about humans being weak while humans tried to stay calm and polite. Among the guests was a humble human engineer named Eli Ward. He wasn't rich or powerful, but he had a kind heart and a mind that always searched for solutions. Eli had come to fix one of the energy cores that powered the Baron's palace. He was quiet, respectful, and spoke only when needed. But that night the Baron noticed him and decided to have some fun. Kael'Roth was known for his sharp words and cruel sense of humor. He began to boast loudly about his wealth, his power, and his family. Then, as the laughter of his guests filled the hall, he mentioned his daughter, Leora. "She is my only child," he said in a cold tone, "but she brings me no pride. She cannot walk, cannot serve, and spends her days in silence. Even our healers have given up on her. What use is a daughter who cannot even stand before her father?" Some of the alien guests laughed softly. Others looked down, uncomfortable. Leora's name was known across the colony, but few had ever seen her. She had been paralyzed since childhood after a strange illness struck her nervous system. Many thought she was cursed or a reminder of weakness, and the Baron had kept her hidden from sight. But to him, her condition was a personal embarrassment, a mark against his perfect image. Then the Baron's eyes fell on Eli. A sly grin crossed his face. "You there, human," he called out across the room. "You seem simple but brave. Tell me, what would you do with a daughter who cannot even walk?" Eli hesitated, not sure if it was safe to answer. "I would take care of her, my lord," he said quietly. "Because even if she cannot walk, she can still feel, think, and live. Every life has worth." The hall went silent for a moment, then the Baron burst out laughing. "Well said. Then take her. Since you think she has worth, I give her to you. Let her be your burden. Let us see how long your human kindness lasts." The guests gasped. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. No one had ever heard of a noble giving away his own child, even as a jest. The Baron's words were cruel and meant to humiliate Eli. He wanted to see the human blush, stammer, and refuse, but Eli didn't laugh, nor did he bow in fear. Instead, he stood firm and looked at the Baron with calm eyes. "If you truly wish to give her to me," Eli said softly, "then I will take her, not as a burden, but as a person." The room froze. The Baron blinked, surprised that his joke had been taken seriously. He waved his hand dismissively. "Fine, take her then. Let everyone see how foolish humans can be. My servants will bring her to your quarters by morning." That night, while others left the palace still laughing about the incident, Eli could not forget the look in the Baron's eyes, nor the pain he had seen in them when he spoke of his daughter. He didn't believe any being deserved to be treated like that, least of all by their own family. He returned to his small quarters near the colony's edge and waited, unsure what would happen next. The next morning, a hover carriage arrived. Inside, it was a young alien woman with pale, silvery skin and eyes that shimmered like quiet water. She sat in a special floating chair that helped her move, though her legs remained still. Her face showed no anger or fear, only deep sadness and confusion. 2 servants carried her belongings, then left without a word. Eli bowed slightly. "You must be Leora," he said gently. "I am Eli Ward. I know this must feel strange, but you are safe here." She looked at him with disbelief. "Did my father really give me to you?" she asked in a low, trembling voice. Eli nodded slowly. "He did, but I don't see you as something given. You are a person. You can stay here as long as you wish. I will not force you to do anything." Leora's eyes filled with tears, though she tried to hide them. For years she had lived in silence, hidden from the world, treated like a shameful secret. She had heard her father's cruel words before, but hearing him give her away was a wound deeper than any she had known. Yet this human's voice held no pity, only honesty and kindness. Days passed quietly. Eli prepared a small room for her, building tools that made it easier for her to move and reach things. He adjusted the height of tables, made a soft chair for her to rest in, and fixed her floating wheelchair when it malfunctioned. He spoke little, but every action showed care. Leora began to notice how differently he treated her, not as someone broken, but as someone normal. It felt strange and comforting at the same time. At night, she would watch him work under the dim light of his workbench. His hands were steady and skilled, his face calm and thoughtful. She wondered why a human, mocked and insulted by her father, would still be so kind. Eli never asked her about her illness or her past. Instead, he spoke about stars, machines, and the dreams of building a world where both species could live without hate. For the first time in her life, Leora began to feel seen, not as the Baron's paralyzed daughter, but as herself. The cruel joke that her father made had unknowingly changed both their lives. And though neither of them yet realized it, this strange beginning was the start of something far greater. A story not about pity or power, but about seeing true worth where others saw none. Days slowly turned into weeks, and Leora began to settle into Eli's small home on the edge of the colony. It was a quiet place, surrounded by tall glowing trees and soft winds that carried the scent of metal from nearby workshops. Unlike her father's palace, where servants whispered and walls echoed with cold silence, Eli's home was warm and full of gentle sounds, the humming of machines, the rustle of papers, and the quiet crackle of his small fire at night. At first, Leora spoke very little. She still felt like a stranger in this new life. Her father had told her since childhood that no one would ever want her. Those words had become a shadow inside her heart. Even though Eli treated her kindly, she found it hard to believe that someone could truly see her as more than a burden. Sometimes she would watch him working, wanting to speak, but her voice would fail her. Eli never pushed her to talk. He simply went about his day, fixing machines, checking colony systems, and making small adjustments to the devices around the house. Whenever he built or repaired something, he explained it softly, almost like he was talking to himself. Yet somehow those small explanations made Leora feel included, as if he was sharing his thoughts just to keep her company. One morning she asked, "Why do you do all this work yourself? Don't you have helpers?" Eli smiled gently. "I had a team once," he said, "but I left the main colony when things became too loud. I prefer to work with my hands in peace. Machines don't judge anyone. They only respond to patience and care." His words stayed with her. That day she asked if she could help him. Eli looked surprised but nodded. He built a small stand for her near his workbench, where she could reach tools and small parts easily. Though her hands sometimes trembled, she was careful and curious. Slowly, she began learning how the machines worked. Leora's mind was quick. She had always been interested in science, but her father had never allowed her to study much. A cripple should not waste time on learning, he once told her coldly. But Eli thought differently. "Knowledge is not about walking or running," he said one evening as they sat by the fire. "It's about seeing things clearly. You already do that better than most." For the first time she smiled, not out of politeness, but because she felt something warm inside her chest. Over the following days, she began to open up. She told Eli about her life in the palace, how her father hid her away from guests, how she would spend hours alone by the window, watching the ships fly past the horizon. Eli listened quietly, never interrupting. He didn't offer false comfort or pity. Instead, he looked at her with deep respect, as though her words mattered more than anything else in the world. One night, when the moonlight painted silver lines on the floor, Eli brought out a strange round device. "This is something I've been working on," he said. "It's a motion assist module. Helps muscles move using microcurrents. It's not perfect, but maybe it can make your arms stronger." He carefully attached it to her wrist. It hummed softly, sending a light vibration through her skin. At first she was nervous, but when she tried to move her hand, it lifted a little easier. A spark of hope flashed in her eyes. "It works," she whispered. "I can feel it." Eli smiled proudly. "It's only a start. But if we work together, maybe we can make more." From that day on, they became partners in a quiet mission. Every morning, Eli would bring new designs, and Leora would test them, offering clever ideas and improvements. She had a natural gift for understanding how energy flowed through machines. She suggested ways to make the circuits smaller and more flexible, and to Eli's amazement, her ideas actually worked. "You have a brilliant mind," he told her one afternoon. She laughed softly. "I just see things differently. Maybe because I can't move much, I've spent my life watching carefully." Their bond grew stronger with every project they built. Leora began to laugh more often. Her sadness started to fade like mist under the sun. She began to enjoy the little things. The sound of Eli humming while he worked, the taste of fresh tea, the way the morning light reflected off metal tools. Still, there were moments when doubt crept back. Some nights she would whisper, "Why are you so kind to me? My father gave me to you as a joke." "You could have refused," Eli always answered in the same calm voice, "because kindness isn't something you give or refuse. It's something you choose. And I chose to see you, not your father's cruelty." Those words touched her deeply. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She began to believe that maybe her life wasn't over, that maybe there was still something beautiful waiting for her beyond her pain. As time passed, Eli built her a new chair that could move more smoothly, and even rise a little higher so she could see over the workbench. It wasn't fancy, but it made her feel independent. The first time she used it, she looked at him and said softly, "You're changing my life, Eli." He smiled. "No, Leora, you're changing your own life. I'm just helping you find the tools to do it." The nights in their small home became filled with quiet conversations. They spoke about stars, about the future of the colony, and sometimes about what it means to be truly strong. Leora realized that Eli's strength wasn't in his muscles or his rank, but in his heart, in his ability to care without expecting anything in return. One day, while testing a new energy converter, Leora's hand slipped and sparks flew. Eli rushed to help her, but she laughed for the first time without fear. "I'm fine," she said. "I can handle it." Her laughter filled the workshop like music. Eli looked at her, and for a brief moment he forgot the difference between their species. All he saw was a young woman with courage in her eyes and hope in her smile. What started as an act of cruelty from a proud alien father had slowly turned into something precious, a bond, built on trust and understanding. Neither of them had planned it, but both began to realize that fate had brought them together for a reason. Every day, Leora's confidence grew stronger, and Eli's admiration for her deepened. He no longer saw her as someone who needed help. He saw her as his equal, a brilliant partner and a true friend. And though Leora didn't yet know it, deep inside her heart, something new was beginning to bloom. The quiet belief that she was not broken, not useless, and not alone anymore. She had found someone who saw her true worth, and that changed everything. Weeks passed, and the bond between Eli and Leora grew stronger. Their small home, once quiet and lonely, had become full of energy and purpose. Every corner now had a machine, a half-built tool, or a pile of glowing wires that connected one invention to another. Eli's workshop had turned into a space of learning and hope. Every morning, Leora woke up with excitement, waiting to see what new idea Eli had come up with. She was no longer the silent, forgotten daughter of a proud baron. She was now a creator, a thinker, someone who could dream again. Her heart, once heavy with pain, was now light with curiosity. Eli noticed the change in her. He had seen her eyes sparkle when she talked about designs and energy systems. One morning, while drawing a new circuit on the board, he said, "Leora, your ideas are far ahead of mine. I think you have a gift that even your people haven't seen." Leora smiled shyly. "You give me too much credit. I only share what comes to mind." Eli shook his head. "No, you see patterns others can't. You think beyond limits." His words made her heart warm. She had never heard anyone praise her for her mind before. For most of her life, she had been told what she couldn't do. But Eli made her believe in what she could do. Together, they began working on something special, a device that could help restore movement in weak muscles. Leora dreamed that maybe one day people like her could walk again. Eli loved her dream and helped her design it. Day and night, they worked side by side, testing, failing, rebuilding, and testing again. Their little home glowed softly every evening as they worked under warm lights. Leora's laughter became a part of those nights. Sometimes Eli would tell stories about Earth and about rain, snow, and blue oceans. She would listen closely, amazed at the idea of such a world. In return, she told him stories of her planet's history, about alien temples built on floating islands and stars that changed color with seasons. One night, as they sat together, Leora asked quietly, Do you ever miss your home? Eli looked out the window at the distant hills. Sometimes, he said softly, but I've learned that home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a feeling. It's where you are seen and accepted. Leora's chest tightened. She didn't reply, but inside she thought, maybe this place is my home now. As their invention neared completion, excitement filled the air. The device they built looked like a light frame that could be worn around the legs and spine. It used tiny energy pulses to help nerves and muscles respond again. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful, a symbol of courage and teamwork. One afternoon, Eli said, "It's ready to test. Do you want to try it?" Leora's hands trembled. She had dreamed of standing again since she was a child, but the thought scared her. What if it doesn't work? She whispered. Eli smiled gently. Then we'll fix it. And try again. We never fail here, we just learn. He helped her attach the frame. The metal was cool but comfortable. As it powered on, a soft blue light spread through it. Leora took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and tried to move her legs. For a moment, nothing happened. But then slowly one of her feet shifted, just a little. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make her gasp. I felt that, she said, tears filling her eyes. Eli, I really felt that. Eli's voice was full of pride. You did it, Leora, you moved. She tried again, and this time her knee lifted slightly. The motion was small, weak, but it was hers. For the first time in years, she felt her own strength returning. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she laughed, and a sound full of joy and disbelief. Eli stood beside her, his own eyes bright with emotion. In that moment, they both realized something. Their work was not just science, it was hope. And hope was the most powerful thing in the universe. Over the next few weeks, Leora continued practicing with the suit. Her balance improved, and she could stand for short moments at a time. The progress was slow, but it was steady. Every step she took made her heart stronger. She began to believe she could achieve more, but news of her improvement soon reached the wrong ears. The Baron's spies had been watching, and when they reported that his useless daughter could stand, the Baron became furious. He couldn't bear the thought that a human had succeeded where his own people had failed. He called a meeting with his advisors. My daughter is being used by that human, he shouted. He's turning her against me. I won't let him shame my name. One of his aides tried to reason with him. My lord, perhaps this is not shame, but progress. If your daughter has found healing, maybe it brings honor. Silence. The Baron roared. No human will ever bring me honor. His pride burned hotter than his love. He decided to summon Leora back to the palace. But when the message reached her, she refused. I won't go back, she said firmly. He doesn't want me, and he just wants control. I belong where I am respected. Eli didn't try to change her mind. He simply said, whatever you decide, I'll support you. Her heart warmed again at his words. You always do. The following days were tense. Leora knew her father might try to force her return, but she no longer felt powerless. She had learned to trust herself. She had found courage in the quiet strength of the man who believed in her. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Leora managed to take 3 steps without help. They were slow and shaky, but real. Eli was there, standing a few feet away, his hands ready to catch her if she fell. But she didn't. She stood tall and smiling. You see, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I can stand. Eli's eyes glistened. You always could, he said softly. You just needed to believe it. The moment felt like magic, the kind that didn't come from power or machines, but from faith and kindness. Neither of them knew what awaited ahead. The Baron's anger, the Council's judgment, the challenges to come. But for now, in that small home filled with the hum of inventions and the sound of hope, Leora had taken her first steps not only with her legs, but with her heart. And Eli, the humble human once mocked by the powerful, had proved that true strength lies not in pride or status, but in the ability to see the light hidden inside another soul. The news of Leora's recovery spread quickly through the colony. People whispered about the human engineer and the alien girl who had achieved the impossible. Some said it was luck, others said it was a miracle, but everyone was curious. The story reached the Alien Council soon after, and that's when Baron Kale Roth decided he had to act. The Baron couldn't stand the idea that his daughter's progress was being praised under a human's name. To him it was humiliation. He had laughed at Eli once, mocking him as a simple worker. Now the same man was being spoken of with respect by both humans and aliens alike. It wounded the Baron's pride more than any weapon ever could. One morning, Leora received a message from her father. His tone was cold and commanding. "You are to return to the palace immediately," the message said. "Your actions have brought enough attention. You will present yourself before the council to prove these ridiculous rumors are false." Leora sat quietly after reading it. She could feel the fear trying to return, the same fear she had felt her entire life under her father's control. But she was no longer the same fragile girl. She had found her voice. Eli looked at her and asked softly, "What will you do?" She took a deep breath. "I'll go," she said, "but this time not as someone who hides in shame. I'll go as someone who can stand." Eli smiled gently. "Then I'll stand beside you." The next day they prepared for the journey. Eli packed the exosuit carefully, making sure every wire and circuit worked perfectly. Leora practiced walking again and again until she felt confident. When the transport ship arrived to take them to the palace, she looked out the window, feeling both nervous and determined. The palace was just as grand as she remembered. Tall silver walls, glowing torches, and the echo of alien guards' boots across the marble floors. But this time she wasn't carried in a chair. She moved herself step by step, using her suit for balance. Each step made the guards stare in silence. Some even bowed slightly as she passed, for they had never seen her walk before. When she entered the grand hall, her father was already waiting. He stood on the raised platform, his robe shimmering with gold. His expression was cold, but beneath it there was something else, and disbelief. "So it's true," he said slowly. "You can walk," Leora nodded. "Yes, father. With help, but yes, I can." The Baron's eyes narrowed at Eli, who stood quietly behind her. "And this human helped you? Is that what you want the council to believe?" Eli spoke calmly. "It isn't about belief, my lord. It's about truth. Together, we created a device that strengthens nerve signals and helps restore movement. Your daughter's strength made it possible," the Baron scoffed. "Strength? She has been nothing but a burden since birth. Don't pretend this is her doing." For a moment, the hall went silent. Leora looked down and her hands trembled slightly. But then she took a step forward and said firmly, "No, father. You're wrong. I was only weak because you never believed I could be strong. Eli did, and that made all the difference." Gasps filled the hall. The council members sitting in their tall chairs leaned forward, curious. One of them, an elder alien with kind eyes, said, "If what you claim is true, then show us. Prove your strength." Leora looked at Eli. He nodded in encouragement. Slowly, she activated the exosuit. The soft blue lights glowed again, and she began to walk across the hall. The sound of her steps echoed against the high walls. At first her movements were stiff, but as she went on, they became smoother and steadier. By the time she reached the center of the hall, the entire council was silent in awe. When she turned around, her father's eyes were wide with shock. She stood tall, breathing heavily but smiling proudly. "You see, father, I can walk. I can live, and I am not your shame." Her words struck deep into his heart. For a moment, even he couldn't speak. The proud Baron who once mocked her was now speechless before the truth standing in front of him. The elder council member rose and said, "This is a great achievement. Both human and alien hands work together to create something that can help many. This is not shame, Baron Kaelroth, this is progress." The hall filled with quiet applause. Eli bowed slightly, humbled by the recognition, but his eyes stayed on Leora. He was proud not of the success, but of her courage. She had faced her father and the entire council, and she had stood tall, but the Baron's pride refused to die easily. After the council dismissed everyone, he called Eli aside. "You may have fooled them with your tricks," he said coldly, "but don't think this makes you equal to us. You are still a human. Do not forget your place." Eli met his eyes calmly. "My place is beside those who believe in kindness and courage. And right now that happens to be your daughter." The Baron's face darkened, but he said nothing more. He turned away, his robe swirling behind him. Later that night, Leora and Eli walked through the palace garden. The air was cool and the stars shone above like silver dust. She felt lighter than ever before. "I've waited so long to stand here in my own home without fear," she said softly. "I used to think walking again would be my biggest dream. But now I know being seen for who I am means even more." Eli smiled. "You were always worth seeing, Leora. The world just needed time to catch up." They sat by the fountain, watching the water shimmer. Leora looked thoughtful. "Do you think my father will ever change?" Eli sighed. "Pride is heavy. It takes time to put it down." But even if he doesn't, you've already changed what needed to be changed. Yourself. She smiled, feeling peace in her heart. The cruel joke that had once brought her to this man had become the reason she discovered her strength. She looked at Eli and said quietly, "Thank you for never giving up on me." He shook his head. "I didn't give you strength, Leora. I just helped you see it." Their eyes met, and for a moment everything was quiet. The garden, the stars, even the wind. It was a silence full of understanding and warmth. The next day, the council announced plans to support Eli and Leora's invention for public use. They called it the renewal frame. It would help thousands across both species to walk again. The same project that started in a small home now had the power to change lives across worlds. Leora's name, once hidden in shame, became known for hope. People spoke of her not as the Baron's daughter, but as the woman who proved that even in weakness, there can be strength. And though her father's pride still stood between them, somewhere deep inside, he knew she had become far greater than he ever imagined. The weeks that followed the council meeting changed everything. The once forgotten girl and the humble human engineer had become the talk of the colony. Every major center across the planet wanted to learn about the device they had created, the renewal frame. It was not just a tool, it was a symbol of what could happen when two hearts worked together, not for power or pride, but for hope. Eli and Leora were invited to visit research stations, hospitals, and schools. Everywhere they went, people, both human and alien, welcomed them with warmth and admiration. For the first time in her life, Leora didn't feel like someone who needed pity. She was strong, confident, and filled with purpose. One morning, as they stood on a platform watching a group of children testing the new devices, Leora smiled. Some of the children who had never walked before were now taking their first steps. The sound of their laughter filled the air. She looked at Eli, her eyes shining with emotion. "Do you see that?" she whispered. "That's what we've done. We gave them a chance to live differently." Eli nodded. "Yes, and it's all because you never stopped believing even when it was hard." Leora turned to him. "No, Eli. I believed because you believed in me first. You saw something in me that I couldn't see myself." He smiled softly but didn't say anything. Deep down he knew that Leora's courage was what had kept them both moving forward. But even as the colony celebrated their success, Baron Kyle Roth watched from a distance. He had not spoken to Leora since the council day. His pride still stood like a wall between them, though every report of her achievements made him uneasy. Each time he saw her name praised, a strange mix of anger and regret filled his heart. He told himself it was just wounded dignity, but deep inside he knew it was guilt. One evening, when the sky was glowing with twin moons, Leora received a message. It was from her father. "Come to the palace," the message read. "I wish to speak with you." Leora stared at it for a long time. She didn't know if he wanted to scold her again or if he truly wished to talk. Eli noticed her expression and said gently, "You should go. Maybe he's ready to listen this time." She nodded. "I hope so. But whatever happens, I'm not afraid anymore." When she arrived at the palace, the guards bowed respectfully. They no longer saw her as a weak child. They saw her as the woman who had changed lives. She walked through the long silver corridors, her steps strong and steady. When she entered her father's chamber, she found him standing by the window, looking out at the distant lights of the colony. For a moment, he didn't speak. The silence between them was heavy with all the years of hurt. Finally, he turned to her. His proud face looked older, more tired. "I've been watching you," he said quietly. "Everywhere I go, I hear your name. My daughter, the inventor. My daughter, the miracle." Leora kept her voice calm. "It's not a miracle, Father. It's work. It's faith, and it's something anyone could do if they believed enough." The Baron sighed. "You speak with such confidence now. I hardly recognize you." "Maybe because you never tried to know me before," she said softly. Those words struck him deeply. For a moment, his proud posture fell. "Perhaps you're right," he admitted. "I was too ashamed to see your worth. I thought strength meant perfection. But now I see that real strength is surviving what others think you can't." Leora looked at him, tears in her eyes. "That's all I ever wanted you to understand." He walked toward her slowly, then stopped a few feet away. His voice was quieter than she had ever heard. "Eli Ward," he said. "He is an unusual man." "Yes," she replied with a small smile. "He is," the Baron nodded.
"He gave me something I could not give you, hope."
"For that, I owe him more than I can ever repay." For the first time, the great Baron lowered his head. It was not a grand gesture, but it was more meaningful than any gift. When Leora returned home that night, she told Eli everything. He listened quietly, smiling when she spoke about her father's change of heart. "I'm glad," he said. "You both needed that peace." Leora looked at him thoughtfully. "You know, Eli, when my father gave me to you as a joke, I thought my life was ending. But now I know it was the beginning of everything." He looked at her kindly. Sometimes the universe hides blessings inside pain. As time passed, Eli and Leora continued improving their technology. They worked together not for fame, but for people. Humans and aliens began working side by side, inspired by their story. The barriers between species started to fade little by little. Everywhere they went, people wanted to meet the woman who could stand again, and the man who saw her true worth. But neither of them let the praise change who they were. Their days remained simple, filled with learning, helping, and quiet joy. One day, as they sat outside watching the sunset, Leora said, "You know what I've learned, Eli? Strength doesn't always mean winning battles. Sometimes it means standing up when the world thinks you can't." Eli smiled. "And sometimes it means seeing light in places where others see only darkness." The wind moved softly around them, carrying the scent of new life from the growing colonies nearby. The world around them was changing, healing, just like Leora once had. Later, when they presented their final design to the Interplanetary Council, Eli refused to take full credit. He spoke clearly in front of thousands of people. "This creation was not made by one mind alone," he said. "It was born from trust, kindness, and unity. It began as a cruel joke, but it ended as a bridge between worlds." When he finished speaking, the entire hall stood in applause. Leora looked at him, her heart full. She remembered the first day they met, how broken she had felt, how lost. And now, standing beside him, she felt complete. After the event, the Baron approached her quietly. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder and said, "I once gave you away to mock a man's heart, but that man returned you to me as the strongest being I have ever known. I was a fool, Leora, but now I am proud, truly proud, to call you my daughter." Tears filled her eyes as she embraced him. It was a moment she had dreamed of her entire life, not for power or forgiveness, but for love and peace. From that day onward, Baron Kael'Roth supported their work fully. He opened his factories for research and provided funding to spread the renewal frame across planets. People from every race and colony began walking again. Their lives changed forever. Years later, when the first hospital dedicated to recovery and innovation was built, it was named the Leora Ward Institute, in honor of both of them, the woman who refused to give up and the man who believed in her. And whenever someone asked Leora what gave her strength, she always said with a gentle smile, "It wasn't magic or luck. It was being seen for who I truly was. Once someone saw my worth, I learned to see it too." Her story became a reminder for generations that real miracles are not about power, but about kindness, patience, and the courage to believe in each other. And so, what began as a cruel joke ended as one of the greatest stories of hope ever told. A story of a proud father's change, a humble man's heart, and a woman who rose beyond her pain to walk tall in both body and spirit.